Jake Morrison pushed back in his pilot's seat and rubbed his tired eyes. The cargo ship's control panel showed green lights across the board. Everything was running smooth for once. He had been flying this route for 3 years now, carrying supplies between human colonies and the outer trading posts. It was boring work, but it paid the bills and kept him away from crowds. The coffee maker beeped, and Jake got up to pour himself another cup. Black coffee, just like he learned to drink. It in the Marines 15 years ago? Those days felt like a lifetime ago now. Back then he was Sergeant Jake Morrison, Force Recon. Now he was just a cargo pilot trying to make an honest living in space. Jake's ship, the Betty Lou, was nothing special to look at. She was old, beat up, and made weird noises when she jumped to light speed. But she was his, and she had never let him down. He had bought her with his military pension and fixed her up himself. Living alone in space suited him just fine. The communication system crackled to life. Jake frowned and walked back to his seat. He was still 2 days out from the nearest space station. Nobody should be calling him way out here. Attention, human. Vessel, came a cold mechanical voice. This is Council Ship Dominator. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Jake's blood ran cold. The Galactic Council was bad news for humans. They had made first contact with Earth 5 years ago, but they did not think much of humanity. Humans were too violent, too primitive, too dangerous to join their fancy club of alien species. Most Council ships avoided human space entirely. Council Ship Dominator, this is cargo vessel Betty Lou, Jake replied, keeping his voice calm and professional. I am in neutral space carrying legal cargo. I have all proper transit papers. Your papers are irrelevant, human. Prepare for boarding or we will disable your ship. Jake looked at his scanner. The Council ship was massive, at least 10 times the size of the Betty Lou. Its weapons could turn his little cargo hauler into space dust in seconds. He had no choice but to comply. Understood, Dominator. Cutting engines and preparing for boarding. Jake quickly grabbed his important papers from the navigation console. His transit permits, cargo manifest, and pilot's license were all in order. He had been careful to follow every rule and regulation. Whatever the Council wanted, it was not because he had done anything wrong. 20 minutes later, the airlock opened with a hiss. 3 Council security officers stepped aboard Jake's ship. They were not like any aliens Jake had seen before. These looked like walking snakes with arms, covered in dark green scales. Their eyes were yellow and cold, and they moved with a fluid grace that made Jake's skin crawl. The lead officer spoke without moving his mouth. The words seemed to come from a device on his chest. You are Jake Morrison, human pilot of this vessel? That's right. Here are my papers. Everything is legal and proper. The snake alien did not even look at the documents. You are under arrest for smuggling weapons to rebel worlds. Jake's mouth fell open. What? That's crazy. I'm carrying medical supplies and farming equipment. Check my cargo hold. There are no weapons on this ship. Your cargo will be searched. You will come with us. 2 of the aliens grabbed Jake's arms. Their grip was strong, much stronger than the humans. Jake thought about fighting back for a split second, but there were 3 of them and they were armed. Plus, if he resisted, they might destroy his ship. He had to play this smart. This is a mistake, Jake said as they dragged him toward the airlock. I've never smuggled anything in my life. Check my record, I'm clean. The lead alien turned his yellow eyes on Jake. All humans are criminals. Your species is violent and untrustworthy. You will face justice in the Council courts. They marched Jake through a long metal corridor into the Council ship. Everything was cold and sterile, like a hospital that had never seen a sick person. Other aliens watched him pass with curious eyes. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking rocks. All of them stared at Jake like he was some kind of dangerous animal. The holding cell was small and gray. There was a bench, a toilet, and nothing else. The walls were solid metal with no windows. Jake sat down and tried to think. This was all wrong. He had been flying the same route for years without any problems. Why would the Council suddenly decide he was a smuggler? Hours passed. Jake paced back and forth in the tiny cell, his mind racing. He had heard stories about humans who disappeared in council space, ships that went missing, pilots who were never seen again. The council claimed to be civilized, but they had their own ideas about justice. Finally, the cell door opened. A different alien entered, this one wearing what looked like a uniform. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. When he spoke, his voice was softer than the snake aliens, but just as cold. I am Intelligence Officer Nexra. You are Jake Morrison, age 34, former military, currently employed as a cargo pilot. That's right, and I'm innocent of whatever you think I did. Nexra tilted his head. Your species fascinates me, human. You cling to concepts like innocence and justice even when faced with superior beings. Tell me, what did you do in your military? Service? Jake straightened up. Even after all these years, he still felt proud of his time in the Marines. I served in the Marine Corps for 8 years. Force reconnaissance. I did my duty and served with honor. Force reconnaissance? Nexra repeated slowly. What is that? Elite unit? We did deep scouting, special operations, that kind of thing. The alien made notes on a small device. And you fought in wars? I fought when my country needed me to fight. I protected innocent people and defended freedom. Nexra's large eyes seemed to study Jake more carefully. You killed other beings? Jake's jaw tightened. I did what I had to do to protect my brothers. And complete the mission. Every Marine understands that. Interesting. Your violent nature is exactly why the Council considers humans too dangerous for membership. You will be useful for our purposes. What purposes? What are you talking about? But Nexra was already leaving. You will understand soon enough, human. Try to rest. Tomorrow you begin a new kind of service. The cell door slammed shut, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. He sat back down on the bench and pulled out the one thing the aliens had not bothered to take from him. His dog tags hung around his neck, hidden under his shirt. The metal was worn smooth from years of wear, and the writing was faded but still readable. Morrison, Jake, a United States Marine Corps, blood type O positive. The tags also had his service number and the name of his emergency contact, his old buddy Alex Thompson. Alex had died in Afghanistan 8 years ago, but Jake still wore the tags. They reminded him of who he was and where he came from. Jake closed his eyes and thought about his Marine training. Survive, adapt, overcome. Whatever the Council had planned for him, he would face it like a Marine. He would not give up, and he would not go down without a fight. The ship hummed around him as it traveled through space toward some unknown destination. Jake Morrison, former Force Recon Marine, sat in his cell and prepared for whatever came next. He did not know it yet, but those dog tags around his neck would soon change everything. The Galactic Council was about to learn what happened when you messed with a United States Marine. 3 days later, Jake woke up to the sound of his cell door opening. He had been moved to a different ship, this one much larger and noisier. Through the walls, he could hear crowds cheering and roaring like they were at some kind of sporting event. 2 new guards entered his cell. These aliens looked like walking armored beetles with thick shells and multiple arms. They carried energy weapons that hummed with power. Time to go, human, one of them said through a translator device. The arena master wants to see you. Jake stood up slowly. His muscles were stiff from 3 days in the small cell. What arena? Where are we? The guards did not answer. They grabbed his arms and marched him through corridors filled with other aliens. Jake saw a species he had never imagined. Some had fur, others had scales, some looked like living crystals. All of them stared at him with curiosity or disgust. They brought him to a large room with a window that looked out onto something that made Jake's blood run cold. Below them was a massive circular arena filled with sand. The walls were at least 50 feet high, and the stands were packed with thousands of aliens cheering and screaming. In the center of the arena, a huge creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a tiger was tearing apart some kind of robot. Welcome to Corvath Prime, said a voice behind Jake. He turned to see a tall alien covered in metal plates and wires. Half of his face had been replaced with machinery, and his eyes glowed with artificial light. "I am Arena Master Vox, you are." "My newest contestant." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Contestant in what?" "The Grand Arena, of course. Where the strong prove their worth, and the weak provide entertainment before they die." Vox walked closer, studying Jake like a scientist examining a bug. "You are the first human we have ever tested. The Council is very curious to see how your species performs. This is murder. You can't just force people to fight to the death." "For entertainment," Vox laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Death? Who said anything about death? If you are strong enough, you survive. If you are weak, you feed the arena. It is the natural order of things." Jake was marched to another holding area, this one much larger. It held dozens of prisoners from different worlds. Some sat quietly in corners, others paced like caged animals. A few were treating wounds from previous fights. Jake found an empty spot against the wall and sat down. A few minutes later, a massive alien with 4 arms and blue skin approached him. The creature was at least 8 feet tall and looked like he could crush a car with his bare hands. "You are the human," the alien said in broken English. "I am Kratos. I heard them talking about you." "Jake Morrison, what is this place exactly?" Kratos sat down beside him, which was like having a small mountain settle next to Jake. "This is where the Council tests new species. They bring warriors from worlds they want to conquer. If we fight well, they study us to learn how to beat our people. If we fight poorly, they use the recordings to show our worlds how weak we are." Jake felt sick. "So either way, we help them hurt our own people. That is the evil of this place. But some of us have found another way." Kratos looked around carefully, then leaned closer. "We help each other survive. Share information, take care of the wounded. The arena masters hate it, but they cannot stop us." Over the next few hours, Jake met more of the prisoners. There was Zara, a winged alien who had been a pilot like him. Gorak, a rock-like creature who had been a miner before he was captured. Dr. Helen Ward, a human woman who had been taken 6 months ago and was now forced to treat the injured fighters. "I can't believe there's another human here," Dr. Ward said, as she checked Jake's health. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much suffering. "They captured me when I was doing research on the outer colonies, said I was spying for the resistance." "What resistance?" Jake asked. "Any group that opposes the Council gets labeled as resistance. Scientists, teachers, anyone who questions their authority." She looked at his dog tags, which were still hanging around his neck. "You were military?" "Marines." "Force Recon." Dr. Ward's eyes widened. "Then you might actually have a chance in there. Most of the people they bring here are civilians. They want easy victims, not trained soldiers." That night, Jake lay on the hard floor and stared at the ceiling. Around him, other prisoners tried to sleep despite the constant noise from the arena above. Some cried quietly. Others whispered prayers in languages Jake did not understand. Kratos rolled over and spoke softly. "Tomorrow you fight. First time is always the hardest. They will put you against something meant to kill you quickly. The crowd loves to see new species get torn apart." "What kind of something?" "For you, probably razorclaw hounds. They are the Council's favorite execution method. Fast, vicious, and they make a lot of noise when they kill." Jake thought about his Marine training. He had faced dangerous situations before, but this was different. In the military, he had teammates, weapons, and a mission. Here he would be, alone with whatever they threw at him. "Kratos, how many hounds are we talking about?" "Usually 3 or 4 for a first fight. They want it to last long enough to be entertaining, but not so long that you might actually win." Jake smiled grimly. They might be in for a surprise then. The next morning came too soon. Jake was given a simple meal and a cup of water, then led to a preparation room. Arena Master Vox was waiting for him along with several other council officials. "Today you represent your entire species, human," Vox said. "Try not to disappoint us too badly. The betting pools have you lasting less than 2 minutes." Jake was handed a simple cloth outfit and a pair of sandals. No armor, no weapons, Nothing that might give him an advantage. They led him to a gate that opened onto the arena floor. The noise hit him like a physical blow. Thousands of aliens were screaming and cheering, eager to see the human die. Jake stepped out onto the sand and looked around. The arena was even bigger than it had looked from above. The walls were smooth and impossible to climb. Across the arena, another gate opened. 4 creatures that looked like wolves crossed with lizards came bounding out. Their claws were as long as Jake's fingers, and their teeth gleamed like knives. They spread out immediately, surrounding him with the practiced ease of pack hunters. Jake took a deep breath and fell into a fighting stance. His marine training kicked in automatically. Assess the threat, identify advantages, make a plan. The hounds were fast and had natural weapons, but they were also animals. Animals could be outsmarted. The first hound attacked from his left, leaping through the air with its claws extended. Jake sidestepped and grabbed a handful of sand, throwing it in the creature's eyes as it landed. The hound howled and stumbled, temporarily blinded. The second hound came from behind, but Jake had been expecting that. He spun around and delivered a powerful kick to the creature's ribs. There was a satisfying crack and the hound went down. Hard. The crowd was getting louder now, but the tone was changing. They had expected to see a human get torn apart in seconds. Instead, they were watching him fight back effectively. The third hound was more cautious, circling Jake and looking for an opening. Jake picked up a rock from the arena floor and hurled it with all his strength. The rock caught the hound right between the eyes, and it collapsed without a sound. The fourth hound and the first one, which had recovered from the sand in its eyes, attacked together. Jake rolled to the side and came up with another rock. This time he did not throw it. When the first hound leaped at him, Jake drove the rock into its skull with an uppercut that would have made his old drill instructor proud. The last hound tried to run, but Jake was not about to let it escape. He chased it down and finished it. With a chokehold that cut off its air supply, the creature struggled for a few seconds, then went limp. Jake stood up slowly and looked around the arena. The 4 razor-claw hounds lay dead in the sand around him. The crowd had gone completely silent. In the VIP section, he could see council officials talking frantically among themselves. Arena. Master Vox's voice boomed across the arena through speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a survivor. The human Jake Morrison has completed his first trial. Jake walked back toward the gate, his heart pounding, but his face calm. He had survived the first test, but he knew this was just the beginning. The council would not be happy about this outcome. They would want to know how a primitive human had defeated their execution squad so easily. As the gate closed behind him, Jake thought about the crowd's reaction. For a few minutes, they had seen something they never expected. They had seen a human win. If word of this spread to other worlds, to other species under council control, it might give them hope. And hope, Jake knew, was the most dangerous thing of all to tyrants like the Galactic Council. Intelligence Officer Nextra stared at the recording for the 5th time. The human had killed 4 razor-claw hounds in less than 3 minutes. Not just killed them, but destroyed them with a cold efficiency that made Nextra's skin crawl. This was not supposed to happen. The betting pools had lost millions of credits. Council officials who had wagered on the human's quick death were demanding answers. But more importantly, news of the fight was already spreading to other worlds. The Council's propaganda machine was working overtime to downplay the event. Nextra walked through the corridors of the Council Intelligence Building, carrying a datapad filled with information about Jake Morrison. What he had found in the human databases was disturbing. Very disturbing. He entered the office of Speaker Zethkar, the snake-like alien who led the Council's most powerful faction. Zethkar was coiled behind his desk, his yellow eyes glowing with anger. "Tell me you have found something to explain." "This embarrassment," Zethkar hissed. Nextra placed the datapad on the desk. "I have found more than I expected, Speaker." "This human is not what we thought." "Explain." "His name is Jake Morrison, age 34. Former military service in what?" "Humans call them Marine Corps, but not just any military service." Nextra activated the holographic display. He served in a unit called Force Reconnaissance. Zethkar studied the human military records that appeared in the air above his desk. What is Force Reconnaissance? Elite soldiers, the best of the best, among an already violent species. They are trained for deep insertion behind enemy lines, survival in hostile territory, and what humans call special operations. The speaker's tail twitched with irritation. You told me he was a simple cargo pilot. That is what he became after his military service, but his training never left him. Look at this. Nexra pointed to a section of the record. Multiple combat. Deployments. Expert marksman. Hand-to-hand combat instructor. Survival specialist. And speaker, he has never been defeated in combat. Not once in 8 years of active service. Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. What else? The metal tags he wears around his neck. We dismiss them as primitive jewelry, but they contain encoded information about his service record, his unit, and his brothers in arms. Brothers in arms? A human military concept. Soldiers who serve together form bonds stronger than family. They have a saying, no Marine left behind. It means they will never abandon each other, no matter the cost. Zethkar's eyes narrowed. Are you telling me we have captured not just a human, but one of their elite warriors? Yes, Speaker. And worse, his tags contain a distress beacon. It activates automatically if separated from the wearer for more than 72 hours. His former unit may already be looking for him. The speaker slammed his tail against the floor. This is unacceptable. How did our intelligence miss this? We assumed all humans were equally primitive. We did not bother to study their military structure in detail. Meanwhile, in the arena holding area, Jake was receiving medical attention. From Dr. Ward, his fight with the Razor Claw Hounds had left him with several cuts and bruises, but nothing serious. That was incredible, she whispered as she cleaned a scratch on his arm. I've seen dozens of fighters face those hounds. You're the first one to kill all 4 and walk away. Krito sat nearby, looking at Jake with new respect. My friend, you fight like a warrior born, but this will make them angry. Next time will be harder, Jake nodded. He had expected that. What's the worst they've thrown at someone? There was a champion from the Crystal Worlds. He won 15 fights before. They put him against Gorath the Destroyer. What's Gorath the Destroyer? Dr. Ward shuddered. 8 feet tall, covered in armor, uses energy weapons. He's never lost a fight. The council keeps him for special occasions. Jake thought about this. If they were going to escalate, he needed to be ready. Kritos, tell me about the arena itself. Weak points, hiding spots, anything I can use. Over the next few hours, Kritos and the other prisoners shared everything they knew about the arena. Where the sand was deepest, which walls had loose stones, how the lighting changed during different types of fights. Jake absorbed it all. Filing away every detail, that night, as the others slept, Jake held his dog tags and thought about his old unit. Alex Thompson, whose name was etched on one of the tags, had died saving Jake's life in Afghanistan. The tags were all Jake had left of his best friend. The tags also contained something the council did not know about. Hidden in the metal was a microtransmitter, standard issue for all Force Recon Marines. If Jake was missing for more than 3 days, it would send out a signal that could be tracked across the galaxy. 3 days later, Jake faced his second arena fight. This time, the opponent was not an animal. It was a council warrior, a crystalline being from one of their member worlds. The creature stood 7 feet tall and had natural armor that looked like living gemstone. The crowd was much larger this time. Word of Jake's first victory had spread, and beings from across the galaxy had come to see if the human could do it again. Arena. Master Vox's voice echoed through the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, today we see if the human's first victory was skill or luck. Facing him is Kristic the Unbreakable, champion of the Mineral Worlds. Jake studied his opponent as they circled each other. The Crystal Warrior was beautiful in a deadly way, his body reflecting the arena lights like a living prism. But Jake noticed something others might miss. The joints between the crystal plates were softer, more flexible. That was where he needed To strike, Christic attacked first, moving faster than something that size should be able to move. His crystal fist struck the ground where Jake had been standing. Leaving deep cracks in the stone beneath the sand, Jake rolled to the side and came up with a handful of sand. He threw it at Christak's face, but the crystals deflected most of it. Still, it bought him a few seconds to circle around behind his opponent. The fight lasted longer than his battle with the hounds. Christak was intelligent, adapting his tactics as the fight progressed. But Jake had something the Crystal Warrior did not have: years of training against human opponents, who were just as smart and much more unpredictable. Jake used every dirty trick he had learned in the Marines. He threw sand, used the arena walls for leverage, and struck at joints and weak points instead of trying to break through the crystal armor. Slowly, methodically, he wore his opponent down. The final blow came when Christak overextended himself trying to finish Jake with a massive overhead strike. Jake sidestepped and drove his elbow into the soft joint at the Crystal Warrior's neck. There was a sound like breaking glass, and Christak collapsed. The crowd erupted. For the second time, the human had won against impossible odds. In the VIP section, council officials were standing and arguing among themselves. Some looked angry, others looked worried. Jake stood over his fallen opponent and looked up at the council section. He could see Nextra and Speaker Zethkar watching him. Their expressions told him everything he needed to know. They were afraid. As Jake walked back to the holding area, he heard something that made his heart race. In the crowd, some of the non-council species were chanting something in their own languages. Dr. Ward translated for him later. They were saying "the small warrior" and "hope lives" in a dozen different languages, she told him. Jake, what you're doing is inspiring people across the galaxy. Worlds that have been under council control for decades are starting to believe they can fight back. Jake looked at his dog tags again that night. Alex Thompson had died believing that one person could make a difference if they were willing to sacrifice everything for what was right. Maybe Alex had been right after all. In his office, Speaker Zethkar was reading reports from across council space. Riots on 3 worlds, protest movements on 12 others, production quotas falling as workers slowed their output. All because one human had won 2 fights in an arena. This human must die, Zethkar told Nextra. But it must look natural. If we execute him outright, he becomes a martyr. What do you suggest, Speaker? Gorith the Destroyer. Time to see if this human warrior is as tough as he appears. But Nextra was looking at another report, this one from Council Border Patrols. 3 unknown ships had been detected entering council space, their signatures matching no known species. They were moving toward Corvath Prime, and they were armed. The distress beacon in Jake Morrison's dog tags had done its job. His brothers were coming. Captain Ryan Murphy studied the star charts on his ship's main screen. The USS Falcon was a Marine Corps stealth cruiser designed for deep space rescue operations. Behind him sat 12 of the best Marines he had ever served with, all volunteers. For this mission? Signals coming from that planet, said Sergeant Amy Foster, pointing at Corvath Prime. Jake's beacon is definitely active down there, Ryan nodded grimly. Jake Morrison had been his squad leader back in Afghanistan. When Jake left the Marines to become a cargo pilot, Ryan had promised to watch his back. That promise was about to be tested. What's our intel on the planet? Ryan asked. Heavy population, mostly aliens. Big military presence. And according to our sources, they've got some kind of gladiator arena where they force people to fight. Amy pulled up more data. The good news is we're not going in alone, Ryan raised an eyebrow. Explain. Remember that underground network we made contact with last year? The one that helps refugees escape council space? They've been busy. Jake's arena fights have been broadcast across the galaxy, and it's caused quite a stir. On the main screen, a communication request appeared. Ryan accepted it, and the face of an alien appeared. It looked like a cross between a Volf and a bird, with silver fur and intelligent golden eyes. Captain Murphy, I am Commander Shrix of the Liberation Fleet. We have been waiting for you. Liberation Fleet? 18 ships from 9 different worlds, all united by a common enemy. Your Marines' victories in the arena have inspired something the Council never expected: hope. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. How many people are we talking about? Across Council space? Millions are rising up. But here now, we have enough ships to give your friend a fighting chance. Meanwhile, on Corvath Prime, Jake was preparing for what Arena Master Vox had promised would be his greatest challenge yet. The other prisoners were unusually quiet. Even Kratos, who never showed fear, looked worried. They brought in Gorath the Destroyer, Dr. Ward whispered as she checked Jake's injuries from his last fight. He's killed 43 fighters in the arena. No one has ever even heard him. Jake flexed his hands, testing his grip strength. His knuckles were still swollen from punching crystal armor, but he could still make a fist. Tell me about him. 8 feet tall, covered in powered armor that can deflect energy weapons. He carries a massive warhammer and has some kind of energy shield. The Council keeps him as their ultimate weapon. Kratos leaned closer. There is something else, my friend. The guards are nervous. Something is happening in the city. Ships have been spotted at the edge of the system. Jake's heart jumped. His dog tags felt warm against his chest. What kind of ships? Unknown design? Moving fast and staying hidden, the Council is scrambling their defense fleet. That night, Jake lay on his sleeping mat and stared at the ceiling. If those were Marine ships out there, it meant his old unit had tracked him down. But even if they came for him, how could they fight an entire planet's worth of Council forces? The answer came at dawn, delivered by Dr. Ward in a whisper. The underground got a message to me. Your people aren't coming alone. Half the galaxy is watching what happens here. If the Council kills you now, it will spark rebellions on every world they control. Jake sat up. So what's the plan? There is no plan. You fight Gorath and try to survive long enough for the rescue to happen. That's all anyone can do. 2 hours later, Jake stood at the arena gate listening to the crowd. It was the largest audience he had ever seen. Beings from across the galaxy had come to watch this fight. The noise was deafening. Arena Master Vox's voice cut through the chaos. Citizens of the galaxy, today we settle a question that has disturbed the peace of our civilization. Can a primitive human defeat the greatest warrior the Council has ever produced? The gate opened and Jake stepped onto the sand. Across the arena, another gate opened and Gorath the Destroyer emerged. The creature was everything Dr. Ward had described and more. His armor was black and silver, humming with energy. His warhammer was as tall as Jake and crackling with electricity, but Jake noticed something else. In the stands, sections of the crowd were cheering for him. Not just a few beings here and there, but entire sections. Non-Council species were openly supporting a human against their oppressors. Gorath spoke, his voice amplified by his armor speakers. Human, you have lasted longer than most, but this ends now. I will make your death quick. Jake crouched into a fighting stance. I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to have to pass. Gorath charged across the arena, his warhammer raised high. Jake rolled to the side just as the weapon came down, cracking the stone floor where he had been standing. The shock wave from the impact knocked Jake off his feet. Jake scrambled away as Gorath swung the hammer in a horizontal arc. The weapon missed him by inches, but the energy field around it singed his clothes. This was not like fighting animals, or even other warriors. This was fighting a machine designed for war. For 10 minutes, Jake ran and dodged while Gorath chased him around the arena. The crowd was getting restless. They wanted to see action, not a human running away. But Jake was not running away. He was learning. Gorath's armor was powered, which meant it needed energy. The hammer was connected to the armor by cables. The energy shield flickered when Gorath used the hammer's special attacks. And most importantly, Gorath was getting tired. Even with powered armor, swinging a massive hammer was exhausting work. Jake changed tactics. Instead of running, he started fighting back. He picked up chunks of broken stone and hurled them at Gorath's helmet, not to hurt him but to annoy him. He darted in and out, striking at the cables connecting the hammer to the armor. Gorath roared with frustration and swung the hammer in a wide circle, trying to catch Jake no matter which way he dodged. But Jake dropped flat to the sand and the hammer passed over his head. As Gorth completed his spin, Jake popped up and grabbed one of the power cables. The cable was thick and armored, but Jake had strong hands and desperate determination. He twisted and pulled until the cable started to fray. Sparks flew from Gorth's armor, and the energy shield flickered. Gorth backhanded Jake with his free hand, sending the human flying across the arena. Jake hit the wall hard and slid down to the sand, tasting blood. His vision was blurry and his ribs felt like they might be cracked, but when he looked up, he saw that Gorth's hammer was no longer crackling with electricity. The power cable Jake had damaged was sparking and smoking. The weapon was still dangerous, but it was no longer the unstoppable force it had been. Jake struggled to his feet and wiped blood from his mouth. "Is that all you've got?" Gorth charged again, but this time Jake was ready. He had been studying the warrior's movement patterns, looking for weaknesses. Gorth favored his right side, probably an old injury. His left leg moved a fraction of a second slower than his right when Gorth swung the hammer down. Jake sidestepped to the left and drove his fist into the joint where the warrior's leg armor connected to his hip armor. Even through the powered suit, the blow had to hurt. Gorth stumbled and Jake pressed his advantage. He grabbed a piece of broken stone and wedged it into the joint he had just hit. Gorth's left leg locked up, making him even slower and more predictable. The fight continued for another 20 minutes. Jake was exhausted, bleeding, and probably had a concussion. But Gorth was in worse shape. His armor was sparking, his hammer was dead weight, and his movements were getting slower. The end came when Gorth overextended himself trying to finish Jake with one final blow. Jake rolled under the attack and came up behind the massive warrior. He wrapped his arms around Gorth's helmet and twisted with every ounce of strength he had left. There was a grinding sound of metal on metal, then a sharp crack. Gorth's helmet twisted to the side and the warrior collapsed to the sand. His neck broken. Jake stood over his fallen opponent, swaying on his feet. The arena was completely silent. Even the council officials in the VIP section were staring in shock. A human had just defeated their greatest champion. Then the crowd exploded. Beings from dozens of worlds were on their feet, screaming and cheering. In the non-council sections, fights were breaking out as oppressed species turned on their oppressors, but Jake barely heard any of it. He was looking up at the sky, where streaks of light were appearing. Ships were entering the atmosphere, and they were not council vessels. His dog tags felt warm against his chest, and Jake Morrison smiled. His brothers had come for him. Above the planet, Captain Ryan Murphy opened a communication channel to every ship in the system. "This is the United States Marine Corps. We're here for our brother. Anyone who wants to stop us is welcome to try." The rescue mission was about to begin. The alarms were screaming across Corvath Prime as Speaker Zethkar slithered into the arena control room. Through the windows, he could see ships falling from the sky like angry stars. His defense fleet was already engaging the enemy, but the attackers were not fighting like any force he had ever seen. "Report," he hissed at Arena Master Vox. 18 ships, mixed species but coordinated tactics. They're not trying to conquer the planet, Speaker. They're heading straight for the arena. Vox's mechanical face showed something that might have been fear. "I think they're here for the human." Zethkar's yellow eyes blazed with fury. "One human has caused all of this chaos?" On the arena floor, Jake Morrison was still standing over Gorth's body when the first explosions shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the crowd was starting to panic. Aliens were pushing and shoving to reach the exits, but the arena guards were blocking the way out. Dr. Ward appeared at Jake's side, helping him stay upright. "Can you move? This place is about to become a war zone." Jake nodded, though his head was spinning. "The other prisoners? We can't leave them." "Already taken care of," Credo said, jogging up with a group of freed prisoners behind him. "Your friend's arrival has caused quite a distraction. The guards are more worried about the ships outside than watching us." Another explosion, much closer this time, rocked the arena. Through the smoke and dust, Jake could see armored figures rappelling down from the open roof. They moved with military precision, their weapons ready, their formation perfect. Marines. The lead figure landed near Jake and pulled off his helmet. It was Captain Ryan Murphy, older and grayer than Jake remembered, but still the same tough Marine who had served beside him in Afghanistan. "Well, well," Ryan said with a grin. "Looks like you've been keeping busy, Morrison." Jake laughed, wincing as his cracked ribs protested. "Just passing the time, Captain. You know how it is." "Yeah, I know exactly how it is." Ryan's expression grew serious as he looked around the arena. "You've started something big here, Jake. The whole galaxy is watching." More Marines were landing. Now, along with soldiers from the Liberation Fleet, they moved quickly to secure the arena and evacuate the prisoners. Jake watched as Kratos helped Dr. Ward toward one of the evacuation points, then turned back to Ryan. "How did you find me?" Ryan tapped Jake's dog tags. "Alex Thompson's beacon. He may be gone, but he's still watching your back." Jake felt his throat tighten. Alex had died saving Jake's life 8 years ago, and in a way, he had just done it again. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the arena as Council security forces arrived. They were met by a wall of Marine and Liberation Fleet soldiers, who had no intention of backing down. The battle for the arena had begun, but this was not like the gladiatorial fights that had taken place here before. This was professionals against oppressors, and the professionals were winning. Council forces had gotten used to fighting desperate, poorly equipped rebels. They were not prepared for a coordinated military action. "Jake," Ryan said, "we need to move. The Council is bringing in heavy weapons, and we can't hold this position forever. Wait." Jake looked up at the VIP section where he could see Speaker Zethkar and other Council officials. "I have something to say first." Ryan followed his gaze and nodded. "Sergeant Foster, give Morrison a boost up to that platform." Amy Foster and 2 other Marines formed a human ladder, boosting Jake up to the VIP section. The Council officials backed away in terror as the bloodied human climbed over the rail and stood before them. "Honorable Speaker," Jake said, his voice carrying across the arena through the public address system that Arena Master Vox had forgotten to turn off. "I believe you wanted to see what humans are capable of." Zethkar coiled back, his yellow eyes blazing with hatred. "You are nothing, human. One small victory means nothing against the power of the Council." Jake smiled and pointed toward the sky, where the battle between the fleets was raging. "Look around you, Speaker. This isn't one small victory. This is what happens when you underestimate the power of hope." Through the arena's communication system, reports were coming in from across Council space. Rebellions on 17 worlds. 3 Council governors had been overthrown. Production facilities were shutting down as workers went on strike. The Galactic economy was grinding to a halt. "All of this because one human killed a few animals in an arena," Zethkar snarled. "No," Jake said quietly. "All of this because you forgot something important. People don't stay down when they have something to believe in. And you just gave them something to believe in." Jake turned to address the crowd, many of whom were still in the arena despite the danger. His words were being broadcast across the galaxy by underground networks that the Council had never managed to shut down. "For too long, the Council has told you that you are weak, that you need them to protect you, that you should be grateful for their rule." Jake's voice grew stronger, despite his injuries. "But you are not weak. You are not inferior. You are free beings who deserve to choose your own destiny." The crowd was listening now, aliens from dozens of worlds hanging on every word. "I'm just one human, one Marine who refused to give up, but I am not alone. None of us are alone. When we stand together, when we refuse to accept oppression, when we remember that freedom is worth fighting for, then no force in the galaxy can stop us." Jake looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting his words across known space. "To every world under Council control, to every being who has been told they are not good enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough, you are wrong, you are worthy, you are strong, and you are free." The explosion that followed was not from the battle outside. It was the sound of Speaker Zethkar's energy weapon firing at Jake, but the shot never reached its target. Ryan Murphy and Amy Foster had climbed up behind Jake and Ryan's rifle was already trained on the council leader. "I wouldn't," Ryan said calmly. Zethkar lowered his weapon, his face twisted with rage and defeat. Around the galaxy, his words were being broadcast, the admission that the Council's greatest fear was not human weapons or human ships, but human ideas. The evacuation took 3 hours. Every prisoner in the arena complex was freed and transported to safety. Dr. Ward volunteered to stay with the Liberation Fleet to help treat wounded rebels on other worlds. Kretos decided to return to his homeworld to lead the resistance there. As Jake's medical transport prepared to leave Corvath Prime, he looked back at the arena one last time. The building was empty now, its purpose ended. Never again would beings be forced to fight for the entertainment of their oppressors. "Regrets?" Ryan asked, settling into the seat beside Jake. Jake fingered his dog tags, thinking of Alex Thompson and all the Marines who had died believing that freedom was worth any sacrifice. No regrets. This is what we signed up for when we took the oath, Semper Fidelis, Ryan said. Always faithful, Jake agreed. 6 months later, Jake stood in Arlington National Cemetery on Earth, looking down at Alex Thompson's grave. The headstone was the same as it had always been, but now it was surrounded by flowers and small tokens left by visitors from across the galaxy. Jake placed his arena champion medallion on the grave, along with a letter written in a dozen alien languages. All of them said the same thing: "Thank you." "You did it, brother," Jake said quietly. "You saved me one more time, and this time you helped save a whole lot of other people too." Behind him, a group of alien children was visiting the cemetery with their teacher, learning about the human concept of sacrifice and brotherhood. One of them, a young being with silver fur and golden eyes, approached Jake shyly. "Are you the arena fighter?" the child asked in carefully practiced English. Jake knelt down to the child's level. "I'm just a Marine who did his job." "What's a Marine?" Jake smiled and touched his dog tags. "A Marine is someone who never leaves a brother behind, never gives up, and always remembers that freedom is worth fighting for." The child nodded solemnly, then ran back to rejoin the group. Jake watched them go, then turned back to Alex's grave. "Mission accomplished, Alex. No one left behind." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was no more. In its place, a new alliance had formed, based on equality and mutual respect. The arena on Corvath Prime had been converted into a memorial for all who had died fighting for freedom. And on a dozen worlds, in 100 languages, children learned about the day a human Marine with 2 small pieces of metal around his neck had reminded the galaxy what it meant to be free. Jake Morrison went back to flying cargo ships, but now he carried supplies to worlds rebuilding after liberation. His dog tags still hung around his neck, and the beacon inside them still worked. But he never needed rescuing again. The galaxy had learned not to mess with a United States Marine.